Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to dive into the absolute ultimate software savior for siloed systems and totally chaotic data. We're talking about data mapping. Look, if you've ever felt like your organization's data is just tangled up in this impossible, messy web, well, you're absolutely in the right place. Today, we're going to untangle the whole shebang. But first, let's kick things off with a pretty staggering question. It really highlights the sheer scale of modern data sprawl across companies today. Think about your own day-to-day workflow for a second. Between your CRM, the marketing platforms, HR systems, maybe your finance dashboards, how many software-as-a-service applications do you think the average mid-sized company is juggling right now? Take a guess. The answer is 288. Crazy, right? That is 288 completely different applications acting like 288 different languages. And without a master translator, your data is just destined for total absolute chaos. I mean, imagine hundreds of people shoved into a room all speaking different languages at the exact same time, trying to coordinate a massive project. That is exactly what your raw data landscape looks like. And the fallout from that kind of chaos? It's severe. A massive 77% of organizations actually suffer from data quality issues. And get this, an overwhelming majority of those organizations report that these exact issues directly hit their performance and their bottom line. Because, when systems can't talk to each other correctly, decisions are just being made on bad intelligence. So here is our explainer roadmap for today. We'll guide you step by step, starting from the cost of disconnected data to defining what data mapping actually is, walking through the mapping lifecycle, looking at tools and techniques, diving into the serious privacy and compliance risks, and finally looking at some real-world data triumphs. Okay, let's jump straight into section 1, the cost of disconnected data, and why 180 zettabytes desperately need organization. To understand why this is such a massive issue, we really have to look at the astronomical cost of operating with disconnected systems. Right now, globally, we are managing over 180 zettabytes of data. When data at that insane scale isn't mapped, it leads to huge blind spots, duplicated efforts, and this sort of silent degradation of your reporting. Which brings us to section 2. What is data mapping? Let's define the backbone of data integration to understand how we actually fix this chaos and start speaking one unified language across the whole enterprise. At its absolute core, data mapping is the structured alignment of source data to target data. Think of it as the quiet, unseen backbone behind literally every successful data-driven initiative. Whether you're migrating to a brand new cloud system, maybe integrating a recent company acquisition, or building out complex AI pipelines, data mapping is the rulebook. It tells your systems exactly how information should move, how it should transform, and where it needs to land. To put that into perspective, think about how this prevents duplicate counting in the real world. Let's say you have a customer named Pete Smith sitting in your marketing CRM, but your finance ERP system has him logged as Peter Smith. Without mapping, your software essentially counts two completely different people. Mapping is what teaches your systems that Pete and Peter are in fact the exact same customer. It completely preserves the integrity of your analytics. Moving right along to section 3, the data mapping lifecycle. We need to go from chaos to clarity. So the crucial point here is knowing how to actually implement this process. It's not just some one-off technical chore. It is a highly strategic, repeatable framework. This lifecycle framework breaks the journey down into 4 main phases. First up, you discover and profile. That means taking a hard inventory of your messy, raw data to see what you're actually dealing with. Second, you design the logic and actively map the fields. Third, you rigorously test those connections in a safe sandbox environment. And finally, you deploy the map and set up continuous monitoring to ensure it actually stays accurate. Now, a really major prerequisite step during that initial discovery phase is something called reverse engineering. Basically, this means looking at the real existing behavior of the data rather than just relying on old, dusty documentation that someone wrote 5 years ago. Schemas change, right? People use fields in totally unexpected ways. Reverse engineering helps you read the actual data truth before you go and design the new path. And your primary artifact in this design phase is what's known as a source-to-target matrix. This is the practical, holy grail document that tracks exactly how fields from your source system, like, say, first name written with an underscore, will be matched to your target system, which might use first name in camel case. It also dictates the transformation rules, like making sure all text is converted to uppercase. This matrix becomes your single source of truth for the entire project. All right, section 4, tools, techniques, and templates. Now that we know the steps and we've got our matrix, let's explore the specific tools you need to actually build out this mapping architecture. Depending on your exact needs, you're going to use one of 4 specific mapping techniques. Schema mapping is basically your structural alignment, just matching columns to columns. Transformation mapping changes the actual format, like, say, converting a full state name into a 2-letter abbreviation. Then there's conditional mapping, which applies specific if-then business rules. And finally, lookup mapping, which cross-references data against an external master list. But you also have to weigh your overall approach. Are you going to map manually? Well, manual mapping offers total, granular human control, sure, but it is incredibly time-intensive and, honestly, highly error-prone. On the flip side, automated mapping uses AI and machine learning to scan, suggest, and match fields at a massive scale. And for modern enterprises dealing with thousands of fields, automation isn't just a luxury anymore. It's practically a necessity. Thankfully, the modern toolkit for this is incredibly powerful. You've got heavy-duty enterprise ETL platforms like Informatica or MuleSoft. If you're more comfortable with spreadsheet interfaces, AI-powered platforms like Sourcetable can instantly generate custom mapping templates just using natural language. And for getting all your stakeholders on the same page, visual tools like Miro are fantastic. They allow you to create drag-and-drop flowcharts so everyone can literally see the data relationships. Okay, Section 5, Privacy, Compliance, and Risks. Because mapping isn't just about operational efficiency. It carries severe compliance factors. This is where mapping turns into a very real legal imperative. I want you to keep this thought in mind from data scientist Dean Abbott. He says, no data is clean, but most are helpful. Perfect, pristine data, it just doesn't exist out of the box. But perfectly mapped data, that is what actually makes your messy information helpful, safe, and most importantly, legally compliant. And this reality builds directly into that compliance piece. Under strict privacy regulations like Europe's GDPR or California's CCPA, consumers actually have the legal right to request their data. Without a copper map, it is literally impossible to locate a user's data across your 288 apps to fulfill one of those data subject access requests. Mapping is also exactly how you build a mandatory record of processing activities. But beware, because the biggest hidden danger here is something called schema drift. This is a massive silent risk. It happens when routine system updates, like an app adding a new field or tweaking a data type, silently corrupt your previously perfect connections. If your maps aren't being actively monitored, schema drift will break your compliance reporting without you even realizing it. Let's wrap things up with Section 6, Real-World Data Triumphs. Let's see how all of this theory actually comes together in the real world to create massive enterprise value and prevent operational disasters. Consider the journey of just a single piece of data, a bill of materials, or BOM, in the manufacturing sector. Engineering builds the BOM in a product lifecycle system, but then supply chain needs that exact same BOM in the ERP system to buy the parts. Procurement needs it, and manufacturing needs it to actually build the product. Data mapping ensures that part numbers, units of measure, and revision codes just flow seamlessly across the entire enterprise without ever losing their exact meaning. Or take this Fortune 500 retailer that recently demonstrated a really perfect hybrid approach in action. They had to map over 10,000 fields to migrate to the cloud, so they used automated tools to map 75% of the standard fields instantly. But, and here's the smart part, they relied on human subject matter experts to untangle the trickiest 25% of their legacy data. It saved them immense amounts of time while guaranteeing total accuracy on their most high-risk data. So data mapping really isn't just an IT chore. It is the fundamental foundation of business truth. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to consider about your own organization's architecture as you step back into your day. Look across your systems, your dashboards, your hundreds of apps. Does your data truly mean the exact same thing everywhere? Because if it doesn't, well, it might be time to start mapping.